Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome back. It's an episode of Hot for Teacher. Yes, that's right. It's been a little while, but we're back. This is episode number 25 of Hot for Teacher. And if you have never watched Hot for Teacher before, if this is your first time tuning in, let me tell you what we're going to do. So Hot for Teacher is as with so many things, it started off as kind of a goof. We do a semi-weekly GM advice show, tabletop RPG advice show called Office Hours. And during that show, somebody said, hey, you're just giving out relationship advice. And I was like, you know what? That's true. Most RPG advice, when we're not talking about rules, we're talking about personal interactions. So I was like, you know what? Let's do a different thing. Let's spin off from Office Hours. Enter Hot for Teacher. So what we do, pretty much the same as Office Hours. Every week, I pick 3 questions that you've submitted to me, and we talk about them. And these questions are about love, or friendship, or sex, or relationships, the various interrelated mess that is human interaction. If you have questions, if you're watching this and you're like, oh, I have a question, teacher, I appreciate that. You can submit them on my website, adam-coble.com. There's a little Hot for Teacher, a little link you can click on. There's a little form, fill it in. You can give me your name. You can make up a name. I don't care. That's fine. This is meant to be an environment to which you can ask questions without feeling like you're putting yourself out there. Now, it's interesting. I find that when I go to look through these questions, just a little bit of like kind of insight into the process in the back end. When I go to look through these questions, I find that so much of what people are interested in asking about, so much of what people want help with, isn't even, hey, I have a problem, please help me solve it. Though certainly that's some of it. Certainly there are questions like that. But I would say that most of the questions are, hey, Adam, here is a thing. This is how I feel about that thing. Am I weird? Like a lot of the time people just want reassurance, right? A lot of the time people just want to be reassured that the feelings that they have are not in some way some deeply abhorrent thing. They want to feel like they're not the only ones who are having these feelings. And honestly, if I can spend an hour of my life just sitting here and reminding people that there is a vast and broad tapestry of human emotion, and that whatever you're feeling is probably also a feeling someone else is having, I feel like that's a pretty good use of my time. I feel like that's a pretty good use of an hour of time. So today we got questions. Which if we didn't, we wouldn't have a show. We have questions from Adrian, Laura, and Jean. So we're going to start with Adrian's question. Adrian has a question about a developing situation. So Adrian has noticed a change in the way his relationships are happening and is feeling a little concerned about that change. Adrian's question reads as follows. Lately, I've been noticing a weird and somewhat worrying trend in my relationships. I always put a distance when I am getting emotionally close with people, as in, I find it harder to talk about my personal problems with close friends rather than talking to strangers on the internet. Even when my friends ask me directly, literally ask me if everything is all right, I lie and just say that it is. My mind seems to think that if I say something like this to people who care about me, I'm making a conscious choice to make them feel bad and sad, feeling like a burden. And my mind seems to think that this is irresponsible. Now, this is mostly an internal problem, so whatever, but I feel like, and don't, just as an editorial note here, Adrian, internal problems are still problems. Like if something is bothering you, it doesn't matter if it's coming from outside your brain or if it's something you're thinking of yourself. Like it still matters. It matters and counts, all right? But we'll get into that. So I feel like I'm failing at maintaining my proper close relationships because I do think that putting this distance here, I'm being a jerk to the people that care about me and for whom I care too. So at this point, I feel very much confused about all of this. I'd really appreciate it if you help me untangle and make a little sense of it. So I think this is a pretty normal thing that Adrian is feeling. I'm seeing some folks in chat, and I'm sure you've felt this way before when someone says to you, I mean, this is the script, right? This is the script that we have with our friends and with strangers. Hi, it's been a little while. How are you doing? Oh, I'm doing fine. How are you? I am also fine. Good. Thank you. The end. Like, we don't often expect when we ask someone, hey, how you doing, that they're going to respond, I am a burning garbage fire, right? We don't often expect that. Even our friends, who we should theoretically be able to be like, everything feels like trash right now, and then I lit that trash on fire, I need help, stuff sucks. We can have a hard time getting over that barrier of burdensomeness, that feeling of like, my emotions are a problem that I should deal with alone. So, first of all, Adrian, I want to draw a dividing line here between what you've described as weird and somewhat worrying, and this feeling of like it being an internal problem. So like whatever. So you don't need to, like, you feel like you're minimizing your problem here. And I think that it's okay to feel bothered by this. It's okay to feel like you are unhappy with the way that your relationships are operating right now. It's okay to want things to change. And like, I think it's also pretty normal to not want to make your friends feel bad, right? Like, I've had this thought process, this feeling pattern before, where I'm like, I am sad. My friends ask me how I'm doing. If I feel bad about my emotions, I would not want to visit those emotions on someone else. So I will tell them I'm fine so that they don't have to worry about it. And then I have done them a service, right? I've protected them from my shitty feelings. And I have proven that I am a capable individual because now I will deal with this alone. And then I will fix it and it will be better. And they will never even have known that I was upset, right? They'll never even know. And I will seem to them to be capable and happy and fine, right? And what a success that must be. To deal with your feelings on your own and to never make anyone else deal with things and to just seem like you are constantly in a state of being fine. But the thing is, it doesn't work like that. That's not how, it's such horse shit. For lots of reasons, right? For example, feeling bad about something is normal. It is not a sign of weakness, right? Having shitty feelings, having a hard time, that is not abnormal. You are not fucked up in any way. Like, that is just how the human experience is. Things are sad. That's how it goes. Sometimes we feel bad, right? So starting there is no aberration. You don't have to hide your secret failure from your friends or from anyone, right? So that's the first thing. Secondly, close personal relationships with other humans tend to involve a more intimate sharing of feelings of whatever tenor, right? Now, like, you might not want to, if you're at the grocery store and someone is checking your groceries and putting them in a bag and they say, how you doing today? You might not want to be like, my entire life is a shambles and I am miserable, because that relationship may not, they're acting out a script that may not be, they don't mean it. They don't want to know, which is frustrating. That sucks. It sucks that that's a part of our social script. But in a close personal relationship with somebody you care about and somebody who, here's the kicker, cares about you, if they ask you how you're doing, probably they actually want to know, right? I know it can be confusing. I know that can be difficult. The social cues on this stuff are not really very fair. So and this is something that I think a lot of people have trouble with. I certainly have trouble with this. I have to learn to believe people when they ask me, how are you doing? Because I have to believe they actually want to know, that they're not just performing the social script, right? And that can take practice. I think the first thing to get over is the idea that you are hurting people by sharing your feelings with them. I'm a pretty private person, and it takes a lot of goading for me to get to a place where I can just be like, here is how I'm feeling. Here is like what's going on for me. Here are my emotions. I am letting you in. This is a gesture of vulnerability, because as I said, like, I want to protect people from bad stuff, especially if I am trying to help them through stuff. Right? I often liken this, and I remember this conversation that I had with a counselor once. I often liken my difficulty with sharing my emotions with somebody who I am trying to also help, like eating a donut when you're on a diet, right? Like, I'm helping you with your feelings. I'm trying to help you get through stuff. But if you ask me like, hey, how are you doing? Let's talk about you for a minute. I'm like, I can't tell you the bad stuff. I cannot burden you, because that would set us back on this weird progress of like me being a helpful person to you and me being a good supportive friend. There's this idea that we're not supporting someone if we're asking them for help. And it's all horseshit. It's all such garbage. You don't have to deal with your feelings alone. And if people want to know how you are doing, be honest with them, right? And you will learn with each person and with each relationship how much honesty you are comfortable with, right? I don't believe that every relationship requires 100% transparent visibility into everything all the time. Because some people have the bandwidth to help, and some people don't. And some people, when they ask, how are you doing? They just want to know generally. Other people want to know the details. And like, you're going to need to learn with each of your close relationships and your friendships, like who you can have these conversations with. You're going to develop a group of people that you can rely on and that you can go to, right? And that's the work, right? Is the internal work of like getting over the idea that you are a burden to people. And then the external work of knowing what people you can trust and go to. Now, I wanted to talk for a minute about this bit about finding it easier to talk to strangers on the internet than it is talking to your close friends. Because I think, show of hands, who finds it easier to talk about serious shit with strangers? I think a lot of people do that. And I think the reason why that feels easier is because the stakes are so different, right? That like, if you go to, I don't know, a parent and you say, hey, I'm having some like difficult questioning feelings about my sexuality, there is the worry that they might be like, well, I don't love you anymore, you big gay, get out of my house, right? There is this feeling of like, I am feeling sad, and if I go to a friend, they might ditch me. Right? They might abandon me. There's this feeling of high stakes. Whereas if you go to a stranger on the internet, they're not part of your life in that same way. And their opinion and their feelings about you, in the end, don't really matter. Sometimes you just want somebody to tell stuff to, whether it's for a moment or over time. And so I think it's different, right? And it's also, there's the factor of like, talking to somebody on the internet versus face-to-face, right? Like talking to them via text, the medium affecting the message. And I think that that's normal too. I think that there's a fair degree of normalcy in wanting to express yourself to people who are not inherently a part of your life in the way that a close friend might be, which is sickeningly ironic, right? Is that like, really the people that we should feel the most comfortable talking to are the people that are close to us. And then what do you do when you get into this situation where the people on the internet do feel like they're close to you? It's a lot. Being a person with relationships is complicated, which is why we sit down and talk about this sometimes. Don't question it, I guess, is the thing. Like, don't feel like weird that it's harder to talk to people who are in your life than it is to talk to strangers. There's different types of interaction there. I mean, honestly, in a lot of ways, this is an advantage of having a counselor or a therapist, right? Because not only are they basically a stranger, right? They only know you in one very specific context, but they're professionals. They're not just the internet, right? They're not just random strangers. They're people who have dedicated their career to being good at helping people work out their stuff, and they don't care about you. I mean, they care about you like as a baseline human and as a client and like whatever, but they don't care about you in the way that like a friend or a parent does. Your life and their life are only tied up in this very narrow way. Again, like talking to somebody who is a professional about this stuff can be so helpful. And like, I personally, speaking from experience, have found it in a lot of ways easier because I feel like even if I am burdening you, even if I'm sitting down in a counselor's office and I say stuff that they're like, oh, that sucks. Like now I feel a little sad because you do. A, they have training to like protect and help them through that. And B, I'm paying them, right? Here's $150. Work out your feelings on your own. Here's my stuff. Help fix it, right? That's their job. So that kind of relationship can be very healthy and meaningful in that regard. And if you're feeling like you're scared that you're going to drag your friends down with your bad feelings, this can be a nice way to have a space to talk about things with someone who is good at listening, who is good at hearing and understanding. And they can give you more tools for building this stuff outside of their office, right? They can help you get more comfortable at having these relationships. And again, and I feel like if you take nothing else away from Hot for Teacher as a show, right? If you take nothing else away from the lessons that we try to talk about in this space, the two big things are like, if you can manage, go talk to a counselor, right? If you can do that, if that makes sense, do that. And the other thing is, talk to people about the things that you are feeling and get their permission, right? So like, here's the thing. If you are worried that you're going to burden your friends with your emotions, right? If one of your friends says to you, hey, how you doing? And you really want to say, I'm really sad and I need help. Can we talk about these things, please? You don't have to do it all at once. You can ask. You can be like, do you have some time to talk about what's going on with me? Like, I'm having some stuff going on. Do you mean it? Essentially, like, if not now, can we make some space? How do you feel about me talking about some of the stuff that's been on my mind? Again, from my experience, I have a really hard time just jumping forward and volunteering stuff. I have a really hard time being like, hey, here is what's going on with me. I could use some help. But if someone invites me, if somebody says like, hey, I've got some time, I've got room, I have energy, I am offering you some of my emotional energy, then I can take it, right? I had this exact same experience, like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago with a friend where they reached out and said, hey, how are you doing? It seems like you're having kind of a rough time. And I was like, yeah, but part of that rough time is that I do not want to take up anybody's energy. Like, I don't want to burden you with this. And they were like, no, it's cool. I'm offering. Here is some space. Go. Just go off. Tell me what's going on with you. And it ended up being very helpful and nice and good for me. But I needed that little push. And I'm trying to get better at asking for that, of saying like, do you mean it? Do you have actual space for this? Which in and of itself can feel like a moment of vulnerability. There's some emotional closeness that can be required for that. But I think that if you are in a relationship with somebody, if you have a close friend, you should be able to ask them, hey, do you have a minute? Do you actually have time for this? I'm concerned that when you ask me how I'm doing, you don't really like have space for it. Can we talk about this? Have that meta conversation about whether or not there's room. And if they say like, you know what? I'm sorry, I was just being polite. Like that was just like, hey, how are you doing? Like, hey, what's up? I've actually got like other stuff I got to do, or I don't have room, or like I'm having kind of a bad mental health day or whatever reason that they give for no, then that's okay. You can say like, fine, that's all right. I'll find somebody else to talk to about this or whatever. It doesn't have to be a negative interaction. But I feel like if these people are actually your friends and you say, hey, I would love an opportunity to talk about some of the stuff that's going on for me, they will find time. So Adrian, the feelings you are feeling are normal. I myself have felt them. Other people have felt them too. It's okay. Secondly, this stuff takes time and practice. So do not worry. Your feelings are not a burden. I promise. And if they are, people that you are around should take the opportunity to put up their own boundaries, right? There's an intersection here between their needs and yours, and it's okay. It's like they can help you understand whether or not they have room for this stuff. But you got to ask. You got to open the door to that, and that can be scary, I know. So practice, right? And you know what? If you have these strangers on the internet that you want to practice with, do that first. It can be a hard thing sometimes, believing people when they say that they care about us. It can be hard to hear someone say, I actually want to know how you're doing. Please talk to me about it, and believe them. But I think we have to trust people on what they say. I have found in my life that it's much easier to just believe the things people say than it is to second guess and dig in and try to find their hidden secret meaning. If someone says they care about you, you just got to take it at face value. If someone asks you how you're doing, you have to believe that they want to know. And if they don't, it's their responsibility to be like, whoa, hold on. I didn't actually mean that. I don't actually want to know what's going on with you. We got to trust people and empower them to have their own agency. Yeah. But give yourself time. Be patient, because this stuff takes work, right? It takes work to untangle. So hopefully that sets you in the right direction. Our second question today comes from Laura. Laura is 22, and Laura is looking at all of the people around her performing a certain ritual behavior, and she's not having any of it. I'm pretty sure I don't ever want to get married. Big same, Laura. Big same. Many commitments that are included in marriage seem unrealistic and undesirable to me. I don't rank relationships in any hierarchy, though I do use the term boyfriend to refer to someone special to me, and friend for most others. My relationship with this boyfriend is very important to me. We have talked about wanting to be in one another's lives for a long time, and maybe even have kids together. I also have other relationships that are important to me. Elle and I love traveling together. Exploring a new place with her is a genuine treasure. E and I often have deep conversations about work, sexuality, and politics, which leave me feeling challenged and invigorated. K always manages to take my mind off my troubles with a crazy story or cooking me some tasty new dish. I'm 22, and many people in my social circle are getting married. I'm finding myself quite jealous of the affirmation they receive when they get married, and insecure of my own relationships as a result. How can I feel that my relationships are real in a society which seems to devalue my relationships as just friends or just a boyfriend? I'm worried people won't take me or my relationship seriously unless I get married. Well, Laura, Yep. Same. Big same for my whole life. Yeah, I mean, Jesus, you think it's bad when you're 22 and everybody's getting married? Wait until they all start having babies. So again, going back to the first question, there is a social script that occurs in many relationships. Yeah, I'm looking at you. You baby having, marriage getting. You know what? So here's the thing. There are lots and lots of different ways to have a relationship. And some of those relationships involve getting married and having babies. And that's like fine and good for those people. But the social script in play is pressure on everybody, right? So what Laura is saying here is not, I don't like that all my friends are getting married. It's that everybody's getting married and their friends and relatives and the internet is getting really excited and happy for them. It is a way that we can all get together and celebrate someone's relationship according to a very specific social script, right? When people get married, they ring a bell and they say, we are in love. We are in legally binding love. I love this person and I have the paperwork to prove it. And as a result, we all get together and say, hooray, love is great. Like, congratulations. You are confirming your deep emotional connection to one another for all the world to see. And the response to that is as scripted as the behavior of getting married, which is like, fine. But if you don't play by that particular script, right? If you are the person who has these, like, Jesus, Laura, it sounds like your life is awesome. Look at you with all your friends and your boyfriend, and you're like, you have a lot of good shit going on in your life. But it's hard to celebrate that. We don't have, hear ye, I have awesome friends. Come over and give me presents because of my friendship. We don't do that, right? Like if I went on the internet and I posted on Twitter today, like, this is my friend Nadja. She's great. People would be like, yes, that's cool, Adam. Good. You have a friend. Your friend is great. Nadja is awesome. I agree. But they wouldn't freak out. There wouldn't be like a friendship registry, right? We have these things that have become developed. It's like you can give somebody a present anytime, but socially, we get together and give people presents on their birthdays, right? Socially, we get together and we give people presents on Christmas. Right? We have preset ritual behaviors that celebrate certain types of relationships. And that's cool, but what I think we need is not less people getting married or even less affirmation of people getting married and having kids. We just need to recognize a lot of the other stories, right? We need to recognize the other stories in the world. We need to recognize the massive value of powerful friendships. We need to recognize there needs to be like ways that we can do this. And unfortunately, those are we have to do those ourselves. We have to build them and craft them and create them on our own. Because marriage, they have theirs, right? Marriage has one, and that's fine. And it's cool to celebrate people being in love. But the work that we need to do as people, Laura, you and I, we need to make our own celebrations, right? And we're not celebrating. So folks in chat are saying, well, like, isn't that what a birthday is? A birthday is great to celebrate a person's existence, right? A birthday is a great day to say, I am glad that you have not died this year. I am glad that you are alive. I'm glad you were born. Hooray for you. And we should continue to do that. But what I'm talking about is celebrating relationships between people, right? Anniversaries of friendships. Having parties that celebrate like how much we like somebody or our relationship with them, right? And including the kinds of things that celebrations occur at like weddings, right? Like at weddings, people get together and they say nice things about the people who are getting married. People who go to weddings, give gifts in celebration of the new life they're starting together. And I think that it would be cool to just come up with and to do those things together, to say like, hey, I realized today that this person and I have been friends for 5 years, and I think that's worth celebrating. Let's have a party, and this party's theme is me and my friend and how much we love each other. And I think that's really cool. Yeah, finding ways to celebrate those relationships will help empower them, because I think, like Laura, I have felt a sense of frustration that I don't want to get married. I'm not interested in marriage as an institution. It's not for me. Whether it's for other people or not, that's up to them. But it's not for me. But it's sad that by exempting myself from that thing, I'm also missing out on that life event that marriage fulfills, right? Getting to have a party where everybody gets together and gets really excited for you, right? It's totally normal, Laura, to feel like jealous or sad that you're not going to get that thing because the narrative that you have chosen not to be a part of doesn't include you in that same way. And that's a bummer, right? That sucks. It's a sucky thing. And while I think that it's normal to feel that way, we don't want to, right? Nobody wants to feel jealous that other people have affirmations or parties or celebration that they don't. And it sucks even worse to feel insecure about your own relationships, right? Now, I am a staunch and stolid, like anti-hierarchical positive about relationships kind of guy. Like I have for a very long time now been very much about like all of my relationships are important, etc. Like all that stuff is important, but I'm also in a position sometimes where I'm like, great, look at all this like love and attention that these getting married people are getting, and like where's the celebration of my stuff? Does that mean my relationships don't like matter as much? And there's an insidiousness, right? Where even if you know in your brain and your heart that like, this is stupid, that me and the people that I care about matter as much as anybody who gets married, it can be hard when the narrative continues to tell you like, nope, this is what you have to do if you want actual recognition from your friends and your family, right? It is normal to feel like that poisonousness kind of slip in. So I think the solution, right? I think the fix for this is valuing your relationships and surrounding yourself with people who also value it, and taking that gamble, taking that risk, and saying like, we are going to make up our own rituals, because that's all a ritual is. It's just made up behavior. We're going to put on our fancy dresses and we are going to engage in a friendship ritual, right? And it can be based on an amount of time. You could celebrate an anniversary. You could celebrate the first time you did something with a friend, right? You could pick like a random thing that feels meaningful and good for you, and then fucking throw a party, right? Like it doesn't have to be. This is the great thing about creating your own rituals. You can do them however you want, right? Every married person has felt ritual pressure as well, right? Like you have to have a certain kind of wedding. You have to dress a certain way. You need certain things. There needs to be music. You have to invite certain people. They are feeling pressure adhering to a specific social ritual, but perhaps we get to make up our own, right? Fuck that. Rebel. Do your own thing. Celebrate your relationships both internally, right? And this is the thing. It can't be understated how good it feels to read that middle paragraph, right? Like it sounds to me like Laura understands the deep meaning of her relationships, right? And I think that's a great place to start, right? So next time that you and Elle go traveling together, Laura, the next time you go on a trip somewhere, have a party beforehand, celebrate it, right? Have a thing, get everybody together and have a, I don't know, we're going to Greece, like themed party, right? There are ways in which that we can celebrate our relationships. It just means that we have to write our own script, because marriage is one thing, one celebratory action. But we should have our own. We should have other things, because I think that those are valuable. I think that taking a moment to acknowledge your friendships means that you get to hold them up and say to everybody like, yo, this is meaningful. This is a meaningful thing for me, and I may not be participating in wedding stuff. I might not be getting married, but I still care about this person, right? And I care about it enough that we're going to celebrate it. I think that we sometimes feel reluctant to draw attention to the things that we care about, because it can feel, I don't know, arrogant or self-centered, right? I think that we're reluctant to say to people, this is my oldest friend, and I love them so much that we are going to have a party celebrating our friendship. Because people will be like, why do you need affirmation for this? Like, who cares? Everybody has friends. Like, that's arrogant. Why are you having a party to celebrate yourself? But like, that's what a wedding is. Right? That's what a marriage is. You have a party to celebrate it, and that's totally normal, and everybody loves it and celebrates you, right? So be bold. If you feel like your relationships deserve a fucking party, then have a party. Nobody can tell you otherwise. And people are going to whine and complain and be shitty about it because because they think that it's not cool to celebrate the things that we care about unless they're already socially prescribed. So that's what I would do. If you feel like everybody getting married and you deserve a little bit of that public attention, you got to make up your own holiday. And that holiday is you and your friend's day. And that's okay. I think that's a positive thing that we can do. And then just continue to like reaffirm those relationships, right? Like take some time to do like what you did when you submitted this question. Take some time to just like reflect on your relationships and remind yourself why they're meaningful to you, right? Your friends challenge and invigorate you. You describe them as a genuine treasure. It sounds to me like you've got a pretty good relationship network, whether it's romantic or otherwise. And I think just taking some time to reflect on that can help burn off those feelings of insecurity. But again, and as with many of these questions, that's normal. It's normal to feel that way. It's normal to look at everybody around you getting married and having babies, and you will find your own ways to make yourself feel better about that, whether it's having a party, quietly reaffirming your relationships, either alone or with your friends, or like posting pretend snarky tweets when people announce that they're getting married or having babies. Just find your way. Find your way to make yourself feel better. But the thing is, your relationships are valid, and they are as real as anybody who is married. Maybe not legally, but that's a whole other question. But emotionally and socially too, I think we should focus on the idea that all relationships of significance are significant, and we get to decide that. So our last question today comes from Jean, which is not Jean's real name, but that's okay. Où est le Jean? Jean has some questions about whether or not his feelings are for real. And we'll talk about what a real feeling is or not, and we'll talk a little bit about love as a concept, which I've done before, but we'll get into it again. So Jean says, me and my boyfriend have been together for about 3 months now. I like the relationship. We're both huge nerds. Having him around makes me feel good, and he's rather patient considering my workload from university. As of late, an intrusive thought leaves me wondering if this is a real romantic relationship. Not once in this 3 months I felt comfortable saying I love you. Now, I don't know if it might be early or not to say that kind of thing. While this is my first real romantic relationship, I have used the L word once before without meaning it. That incident caused me a bit of emotional stress, so I don't want to go through that again. Since I started thinking about it, I'm afraid that I'm wasting his time and emotional investment with not, for lack of a better word, repaying that investment. At the same time, there are moments when my heart feels all fuzzy, and I'm about to say it. Almost. I guess my question is something along the lines of, how can I determine if my affection in a relationship can still grow? Or maybe, are these feelings normal? From Jean. So, let's unpack here. It seems to me that you are having a nice time. It seems to me, Jean, that you are in a relationship that you are enjoying. The relationship feels good for you. You feel supported, right? You feel good in this relationship. But because you have not performed the social ritual of saying the magic words, I love you, you're beginning to doubt your relationship. You're starting to think, well, why don't I want to say it? If I really cared about this person, by now, I would want to say the thing. Now, you've got some stuff going on, some traumatic past stuff regarding the words, and it makes sense that you wouldn't want to go through that again. And so because you don't necessarily want to say it, you're starting to feel like everything is a fucking sham. That all that love and affection and fun times and care might be a lie. You're starting to feel like if you don't say it, it's not real. And it sounds to me like this pressure to perform the ritual behavior of I love you is really fucking with your shit. And so I'm sorry, Jean, that sucks. I don't like love. I don't like it. I think it is dumb. I don't like love, and I don't like fun. Fun is the office hours version of this conversation. So, love. It's stupid. Let me tell you why. It's a word that we use to refer to a great number of emotional things. Let's imagine, I'm going to look around. What have I got on my desk? I've got a keyboard. I've got a mug. I have a video game controller. I have a bottle cap. What if the word in English for all those things was the same? What if the word for all of those things was, chlorp? If I said to you, pass me that chlorp, you would look at me like, which fucking one, Adam? Which chlorp do you desire? Love is the same thing, right? When I say to you, I chlorp you, you're not going to know exactly what it is that I mean. Do I mean the socially normative method of chlorp, right? Is this the narrative that we ascribe to, where the music is beginning to swell in the soundtrack, and finally the protagonist looks into the eyes of their beloved and says, I chlorp you? Or do I mean I chlorp you in the way that I chlorp lasagna? Right? It is a word with so much meaning and so little clarity that it is nearly irrelevant. My response generally to someone saying to me, I love you, is what? Not, oh, I love you too. Because then you're just multiplying the chlorp, right? The problem becomes worse. When somebody says to you, I love you, and you say, I love you too, it's like, great, now you're both saying nothing. It has become a game of chicken, emotional chicken, where you're like, I don't know, what is that? What do you mean? Am I lasagna to you? Or is this the climactic scene in the rom-com? Like, what feeling is going on? So we don't talk about what that means. Now, I don't necessarily think that love as a feeling, the thing that we sometimes refer to as love, is invalid. I think that it's great. I love ramen, right? I love it, but I love it in a different way than like I love my brother, because I don't want him to be in a bowl. I don't want to kill and eat him, right? That's different. So what I think we got to do here is recognize that this word and this phrase is a fucking loaded gun, right? I don't think that it is fair to just leave it unexamined, right? We need the word keyboard. We need the word mug. We need the word bottle cap so that we can differentiate between those things. They're different objects. So when we say, I love you to someone, what we should really do is make that a conversation, right? It's not the end of a conversation, it's the beginning of one. When we say to someone, I love you, we should always help them understand what that means. Now, that can take lots of different forms, right? Like, you may not just be like, I love you. Let me read you my thesis about what that means. Part the first. When I use the word love, in general, I mean care deeply about, right? Like, it can be a bunch of different stuff, but I think that if someone tells you that they love you, or you want to tell someone you love them, you open a door, you open an emotional door to a vulnerable place, because you're telling them that they are meaningful to you. And I think, in my experience at least, it's a nice conversation to have for both of you. right? Like I love it. I enjoy it a great deal. God damn it. But yes, like the thing is, even in this specific context, right? Saying to someone, I love you, means, without any clarification, I love you in the most like normatively established, regular, plain, like all of the social cues can be assumed based on the culture that we live in and the media that we consume that is produced by that culture. I love you in whatever way the movies want me to love you, right? If you don't clarify, people will fall back on whatever they're socialized to believe. And that's going to vary from person to person, right? Like if I say I love you to somebody who grew up in North America versus somebody who grew up in, I don't know, Egypt, we're going to have necessarily different experiences of what that means. To some people, I love you means let's get married. To other people, I love you means I love you, man. Like you are cool. So like it's worth talking about. And I think that the reason why it's so worth talking about is because it can lead to conversations that will deepen and empower a relationship, right? Because what you're really saying is, you are important to me. You matter. I care about you. I care about this relationship. Let me explain to you why. Now, if you feel, as Jean does, if you feel that that phrase, I love you, is too loaded, right? If you are afraid to use that ritual statement because of all of its like heaviness, you don't have to. It doesn't mean anything. It is devoid, as with everything, devoid of inherent meaning. It only has the meaning you give it. So how about, Jean, if you want to reinforce your relationship with your boyfriend, tell him the stuff you just told me, right? Tell your boyfriend, hey, it really makes me feel good how patient you are with me because I'm very busy, and knowing that busyness doesn't bother you or negatively affect our relationship, that makes me feel so good and seen and validated. So what I just did there was I took I love you and I broke it down into something smaller and more detailed and specific. If you say that to your boyfriend, if you validate that feeling, and if you tell your boyfriend something specific that you care about him, that I think is just as impactful. I think that we put so much fucking pressure on the phrase I love you that it's like trying to have 17 conversations at once. And if you don't feel comfortable because of your own internal stuff, if you feel like the word is too loaded, then like I said, just break it down. Find things that you like about your friends and tell them. Validate your relationship with them. Tell your boyfriend, here are things that I care about you. This is a really good practice to get into, right? To just like tell people positive stuff about your relationship with them. I don't know. If you want homework, everybody, you want some homework? Find somebody in your life that you love, whatever that means for you, and like tell them a reason. Give them something. Tell them today. Send them a text message. Call them. Hit them up on Discord. Tell them like, hey, my relationship with you is valuable to me. Here's a thing that I care about. So, that's the thing. Show them. Yeah. I mean, I think the thing is that like we want to rely on I love you because it is that big, soundtrack swelling in the background moment. We want to feel like there is this thing we can look at to say, this is what matters to us. And then, yeah, as fuck, this is, and you're so smart, chat. You did it. Bougie Power in chat figured out where I was going with this. If you do this on the regular, what you have done is you have established a baseline for what it means when you say, I love you. You have charged up the power of that phrase in a personal and meaningful way. So now, when I say to my brother, I haven't seen you in forever, I miss you, I love you, he knows that I mean that I value his friendship, that I care about his place in my life, that not being able to see him or be around him is hard for me, and that I'm really glad that we are friends and not just related, right? That I love you has been charged up by 30 years of emotional interaction, right? Of like talking to each other and having these feelings out in the open. So now I can say that. And when I whisper to my bowl of ramen, I love you, ramen, I know that what I mean is I am excited to have you inside of me. So the idea here is that I love you it's only useless if we don't take the time to build up what it means with a person, right? And I think it's okay to, when someone says I love you, to ask for detail, to be like, that makes me really happy. Can you tell me more about that? I want to know more about how that feels for you. Also, I like hearing nice things that you say about me in our relationship. So like, tell me so that I know when you say I love you, what that means. Because it's a stand-in for like a bunch of other stuff. And as with stand-ins, we get to define what they mean, right? So some of this anxiety, I think, comes from using love as a stand-in and an assumptive statement, right? It sounds to me like Jean here sees I love you as an affirmation that the relationship is real. That if you don't tell someone you love them, it's not a real relationship, like until you get to that point. And so it undermines the relationship if you don't feel comfortable saying it. Right? So the answer to your last question there, Jean, is that yes, your feelings are normal. You are dealing with a lot of like socialized emotional stuff that surrounds the phrase I love you. Your relationship is a real romantic relationship if you want it to be. You don't have to repay anybody for anything, right? Your boyfriend, this was a red flag for me on this question, but your boyfriend, you're not wasting his time and emotional investment by not repaying it, by not being like, I love you. People do what they do because they want to do those things. And again, this goes back to trusting people, right? Your boyfriend is investing. I fucking hate using capitalist terms for relationships. Your boyfriend is choosing to do things that makes him closer to you, right? He is putting in time and energy to that project, that relationship, because he wants to. If the amount of time and emotional energy that you are putting into the relationship is not enough for him to feel comfortable and happy, you have to trust him to tell you. And in those moments when your heart feels all fuzzy, you don't have to say, I love you. We have a broad spectrum of great reaffirming things that we can say. You can tell your boyfriend in those moments, hey, I feel really good right now. Hey, it feels really nice being with you. Hey, I feel really happy, right? Hey, my heart feels fuzzy, right? Like you can express things without having to play by that script that I love you fulfills. That is a thing that I think is important to remember. The way that we express our feelings to other people, the more personal it is and the more specific it is, the more meaningful I think that is. Like, if somebody says, I love you, I'm like, okay. But if somebody says to me, being around you makes me feel electrified, or I didn't talk to you for a week and it made me feel stir crazy, I'm so happy to talk to you again. That's a specific feeling. I can understand and employ that in my understanding of our relationship. But if somebody just says, I love you, I'm going to be like, motherfucker, be more specific. I probably won't say that, especially if they've never said it to me before. But build that understanding with the person. And that process in and of itself is very reaffirming too. I think that working with someone to understand how you both feel about each other is an act of love? I think so. And honestly, if you're with somebody who doesn't want to have those conversations, if you're with somebody who's like, why can't you just say I love you? I don't need to know what it means. I just need you to say it. Like, work on that with them, right? Like, I feel like if somebody wants to just play by the script and not talk about things, yeah. For me, a lot of my problems with the concept of like love as a cultural object, is that I don't think that I don't prioritize like romance as a thing at all. I barely feel it. I feel deeply connected to people. I feel like the way that I express and perform love, it's not a thing that people will recognize without me specifying it. You know, I have conversations with people where I'm like, I'm really not a romantic person. Romance is not something that I am like good at. If we are in a relationship, you may feel an absence of romantic attention. And then months into the relationship, they're like, I don't understand why you said that. Like, you do all of this nice stuff for me, and you make me feel cared about, and like, it's really clear to me that you love me in a way that I perceive to be romantic. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't feel like that. I'm not outputting that. And that's why those conversations are important, because it's like the only way you can really know somebody, like really truly know somebody and their emotions, is if you ask and you engage. Big feelings. Big feelings today about love and marriage and what have you. I love these chats. I love doing Hot for Teacher. I think it's so nice to just take a minute and like think about our relationships. Like I'm gonna end this episode and I'm gonna reach out to some people that I care about. And I'm going to tell them specific things that make me happy about my relationship with them, because as an opportunity for examples, I'm forced to like look within and find all those things. So I hope this episode gets you fired up too, whether it gets you fired up about your existing relationships or something you want to do with your life relationship wise. I hope that I've given you a little kick in the butt, and hell, maybe just you're going to go eat a donut, or you're going to buy yourself a brand new Clorp. If you have questions, if you were like, hey, I have a thing I'd like to ask Adam, do it. I dare you. Go to www.adam-koebel.com, click on the Hot for Teacher link, submit your question. I love them. I love reading them. I love figuring them out. I love answering them and talking about this stuff. This has been episode number 25 of Hot for Teacher. I've been me, you've been you, and I will see you next time for more. Thanks for coming, everybody. I clorp you very, very much.